Hi, my peeps, and welcome back to the channel where we find out what kind of dumb stuff the young earthers have to say about their world view today. And we're gonna go back to Eric Hovind. I just love him, you know? So, my last few videos on Eric, before I took a break from Eric and went on to Answers in Genesis and Genesis Apologetics, was about the flood. Because, I mean, come on. We all like their excuses about how a mythical worldwide flood was possible 4,400 years ago, even though science literate people know there's no fucking way to have a global flood. But, make fun of it. And hey, throw in some education while you're at it, because, these people need all the goddamn help they can find, and they really don't have much education. So, I'll help you out. At any rate, I'll do my shilling because, come on, that's part of my job. And then, little Eric, you can take it away and spew all the nonsense that you want so I can tear it apart. And while you're thinking about it, if you're new, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? And if you've already subscribed to me, make sure you're still subscribed because for some reason, YouTube loves to unsubscribe people. Also, if you're new here, I'd like to thank you very much for giving me a chance. And for my fans and subscribers, thank you so much for coming back. You are the lifeblood of this channel. And now, with that, let's get on with the video.
Way, of course, it pulls away and opens up those cracks, and you had to be replaced with more mantle material, which made more new ocean crust. But the new ocean crust was hot, more buoyant, and so it pushes up like your bathtub getting pushed up from the bottom. The water doesn't compress well, so it has to rise. So you push the seafloor up.
I'm not quite sure why you didn't just, animate what you were talking about instead of trying to get it through with just hand gestures. Because, creationists love wasting money on total fucking nonsense. And then, of course, you've got your audience, which I assume would be kids, because who else is gonna buy this shit except little kids? And they would love a cartoon. So, yeah. So, since you're too lazy to go to the animation team at where the fuck ever you work at, because I'm sure they've got an animation team. Creationists love wasting their money on fucking nonsense. Or finding your own. I'll find one for you.
The seafloor up. My good friend Dr. Andrew Snelling calculated, I think it's like 1.5 miles of water would rise about 1.5 miles. It's either 1 mile or 1.5 miles. I have to double check. When you calculate out, you push up the seafloor enough, that's how high the water would go, just by pushing the bottom of the seafloor up.
Wow.
And I think that might have been enough to flood the highest hills. The pre-flood world might have only been 4,000 or 5,000 feet high for the highest mountains.
Okay, I've always wondered that.
Not quite sure why he opts to talk about oceanic crust formation instead of continental crust formation. but it's basically cyclical. So I guess maybe it doesn't really matter. Anyway, I'm going to talk about oceanic. So the shape of the ocean floor is mainly due to a phenomenon called plate tectonics. Um, the ocean crust is basically divided into a dozen or so separate parts called plates, which float on the mantle. Convection currents cause these plates to move about the Earth's surface about a few centimeters a year, which, slight tangent, is one of the reasons we know the flood could not have happened, because it would take more than a few centimeters a year for the continents to get to where they are today in about 4,400 years. Um, oh, and by the way, they agree with scientists that there was one continent. And let me just throw this in as a bonus. I know most of you know this, but as this hot rock comes up from the mantle, it cools, and as more comes up, it spreads, and this means that the rock which is furthest than the plate boundary is older, and we can measure the differences in magnetism over time. Because as the magma cools, any iron in it is going to align with the Earth's magnetic field, and it will become fixed within the rock. And this is how we know that Earth's magnetic field is flipped.
Of course, it pulls away and opens up those cracks, and you had to be replaced with more mantle material, which made more new ocean crust. But the new ocean crust was hot, more buoyant, and so it pushes up like your bathtub getting pushed up from the bottom. That's gonna.
So let me see if I've got this straight. First, you're saying that the flood was so torrential that it ripped up Pangea so much that the continents got to where they are today. But in the same breath, you're saying that the continents were like bumper cars, so that 80% of all mountains were formed at the same time. And by the way, these mountain ranges and mountains are on different continents. Um, okay. Tim, I know you know how dumb this sounds, because I'm not even a geologist, and this sounds dumb to me. Now, I know you're addressing an audience that doesn't know how orogeny works, but I do, so this dumb fuckery isn't going to work for me. However, I am super happy for you to try to pull the wool over your sheeple's eyes, because they're soon going to see it and they're going to kick your ass out. And the last thing I want to point out before I let you go on with your lies is that you are purposefully conflating orogeny, or the process of mountain building, with the process of seafloor spreading.
Getting pushed up from the bottom. That's gonna. The water doesn't compress well, so it has to rise. So you push the seafloor up. My good friend Dr. Andrew Snelling calculated, I think it's like 1.5 miles of water would rise about 1.5 miles. It's either 1 mile or 1.5 miles. I have to double check. When you calculate out, you push up the seafloor enough, that's how high the water would go, just by pushing the bottom of the
Okay, so first let me get to the easy thing first, and then I will address water compressibility. Okay, so this dude is saying that there were hills in the pre-flood world. Not mountains, but hills. Other young earthers say not. So which is it, Tim? Were there no hills at all in the pre-flood world? Or were there hills in the pre-flood world? And why can't you agree on one simple thing? Now, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in this bullshit about a worldwide flood. And by the way, there are lots of Christians who don't believe the bullshit of a worldwide flood. But you do, and you would think that you young earthers would come together and decide on a storyline. The highest mountain on Earth today is Mount Everest. There are differing opinions on exactly how high it is, but a joint Nepal China investigation puts it at around 29,000 feet, and so scientists have pretty much adopted that. Now, you're saying that in 4,400 years, Mount Everest grew like 22 to 24,000 feet? In 4,400 years. Let that sink in. Do you know exactly how much heat that would put off? You should know, because you're a fucking geologist, but of course you have to lie.
And I think that might have been enough to flood the highest hills. The pre-flood world might have only been 4,000 or 5,000 feet high for the highest mountains.
Okay.
We will need a syringe, chalk, and water. Put the chalk in the syringe and compress it. It does not compress. Now take in water. Seal the opening and compress it. It compresses just a little. Now take in air, seal the opening, and compress it. It compresses the most. The compressibility of water, but it takes extreme pressures for us to be able to observe it. Let's assume we sink this glass of water to a depth of 5 kilometers below the ocean surface. This is a depth of about 16,400 feet. The pressure at this depth is about 500 times the pressure that this glass is experiencing right now. And this volume of water would compress by about 2.3%. This is not very much, but it is relatively easy to measure. There are applications in everyday life where compression is significant. One example is water jet.
So as you heard the guy in the video doing the experiment with the gas and the water and the solid explain, chalk, or solids rather, are not compressible. So why is this? Now, I know most of my viewers are going to know this already, but please bear with me while I explain a little bit for those who may not understand this. So, we've got 3 states of matter. Well, actually, there are 4 states of matter if you want to be pedantic about it, but the 4th state really doesn't come into play here. So the 3 states we're concerned about are gases, liquids, and solids. So that's what we're dealing with. The compressibility of a substance has to do with the amount of air between the molecules of said substance. Gases have the most amount of air between the molecules of that substance, liquids the second, and solids the third. I bring this up for two main reasons. The first and most important is that Tim says, well, water is a little compressible, but he doesn't give any explanation. Now, I realize this is probably made for kids, but even little kids can understand this. It really pisses me off when people just arbitrarily decide what little kids can understand and what they can't. Yes, kids have a hard time understanding some things, and it is just the way their brain works. But they can understand probably a lot more than we give them credit for. And this is, by the way, the reason most people have to get these kids while they're young is because they are quite impressionable when they are young. The second reason I mention this is because I believe in giving credit where credit is due, even if it's a teensy little bit of credit. And the fact that Tim honored the fact that water is only a little bit compressible is, in my eyes, a laudable achievement for these douchebags. By the way, well done, Tim. And I don't mean well done as in sarcasm. I mean that as in, well done! So I think this is going to be the next to last video dealing with this video about the flood with Tim Cleary and all that shit. And the reason is they tell so many lies that it takes literally forever to pick the lies apart and get to the truth. And I don't even deal with all of the lies. Okay? Because some people have dealt with it a lot better than I could. And some of their lies are just so fucking out there that I have a hard time believing that anybody can believe these lies. Even as a former young earther, some of these lies are just so out there that even I wouldn't believe them. You know, all of these lies, they just make young earthers look pathetic. Look, if there are any young earthers that have deigned to follow me this far into the video, I have a little bit of advice that you may want to listen to. Stop trying to make your pathetic beliefs make sense by appealing to science. It has not worked, it is not working now, and it will never work. Just say, I have faith that God done did it. Boo-yah. Oh, and apropos of nothing, keep your fucking beliefs in the home and in the church where they fucking belong, and we will leave you alone about this shit because we don't care what you believe. Congratulations for sticking with me through this shit show of lying bastards. Actually, I would say Tim is a lying bastard. Not so sure about Eric. I'm more inclined to go softer on Eric. And the only reason I'm inclined to go softer on Eric is because, honestly, I have a soft spot in my heart for him because he had a really sick bastard of a dad and he got beat. So, yeah. Still, Eric, you are a grown ass dude. So, you should be able to do your own research by now. And you know what? Libraries do have, like, places you can go that can teach you. And when I say research, I mean, like, real research, as in real academic journals, not the echo chambers that are Institute for Creation Research, Answers in Genesis, and all that other bullshit. At any rate, that's all I've got for today in way of calling out the bullshit of these creationists. If you like this, please like and subscribe. If you can, throw a little bit of money my way. You can become a member of my channel for as low as 99 cents a month. That gets you these debunks at least one day, usually 2 days early, and also gives you custom emojis. Or if you want to do a one time, you can do my PayPal.